Imagine walking through a jungle so dense that sunlight struggles to touch the forest floor. The air is thick with moisture and silence. Every step feels like an intrusion. Birds flee, insects pause, even the wind seems to hold its breath. And then, there it is, half swallowed by roots, moss and time. A pyramid of stone, ancient and silent, rising like the memory of a world long buried. It doesn't appear on any tourist maps. There are no signs, no paths, no stories told in guidebooks, only a presence, as if the very earth is whispering, not in words, but in a memory. You've just stepped into the unknown, into the world the Maya left behind. Before European ships reached these shores, before modern nations rose and borders were drawn, the Maya ruled vast stretches of Central America. They built cities larger than most capitals of their time, with elevated roads that connected temple complexes, ceremonial platforms, palaces, reservoirs, and observatories. Their architecture wasn't just functional, it was cosmically aligned. Every wall, every stair, every shadow cast at sunset was part of something greater, a message in stone. This was not a primitive people lost to history. This was a civilization of architects, mathematicians, and astronomers who calculated lunar cycles and planetary orbits with a precision that still puzzles modern scientists. They predicted eclipses centuries in advance. They aligned their sacred sites with celestial events. They measured time not in years, but in vast cycles spanning thousands upon thousands of days. And yet the question remains, how did they vanish? How can a civilization so complex simply disappear? No epic war, no cataclysmic event written into the earth, just silence, empty cities, abandoned temples, roads that lead to nowhere but the forest. It was only in recent years that the world began to understand the true scale of what was lost. In 2018, an aerial scanning technology called LiDAR pierced through the canopy of the Guatemalan jungle, and what it revealed stunned the global archaeological community. Beneath the jungle, untouched for centuries, lay the remains of more than 60,000 previously unknown structures. Pyramids, fortresses, homes, canals, causeways. An entire network of cities once hidden under the trees, more extensive than anyone had ever imagined. They weren't isolated city-states. They were connected, organized, engineered. This was an empire. One that rivaled the Egyptians, the Greeks, the Mesopotamians. But with one key difference. They left almost no written explanation behind. What they did leave, carved into stone, buried in the dirt, or encoded in the last surviving codices, are fragments, pieces of a greater truth, a truth so vast and mysterious that we are still struggling to see it clearly. Because to understand the Maya is not just to study the past, it is to confront the possibility that they saw, and perhaps understood, a future we are now beginning to enter. Among the fragments left behind, one stands out. A calendar. But not just any calendar, one that spans thousands of years, tracing cycles longer than the rise and fall of entire empires. To the Maya, time wasn't linear. It was layered, repetitive, alive. They believed the universe moved through vast cosmic rhythms, and that every moment we live is part of a much older pattern, one that has repeated before and will repeat again. Their long count calendar was not just a tool for marking days. It was a framework for understanding reality itself. In 2012, this calendar captured global attention. Sensational headlines claimed the Maya predicted the end of the world. But that wasn't what the calendar said. Not really. According to their tradition, that date marked the end of a great cycle, not destruction, but transition. The closing of one cosmic chapter and the beginning of another. What kind of transition? They never said. Or maybe they did. Just not in a way we know how to read. In the few codices that survived colonial destruction, like the Dresden Codex, there are pages filled with astronomical calculations, references to solar and lunar cycles, and strange illustrations, serpents descending from the sky, floods swallowing cities, beings emerging from the stars. Were these myths, metaphors, or warnings? The Spanish colonizers destroyed nearly all Maya texts. Of the thousands that once existed, only 3 remain, and even those are incomplete. What was erased was not just history, but perspective. A worldview in which the heavens and earth were deeply connected, and in which every movement of the stars carried meaning here below. Some researchers have begun to notice something uncanny. Many of the celestial alignments and planetary patterns the Maya tracked so obsessively are happening again. Now, in our lifetime. They tracked Venus like no other culture, charting its every movement. They believed that Venus, the morning star, was a harbinger of great shifts, of rulers rising and falling, of chaos and renewal. And today, with modern software, we can confirm it. Many major events in Maya history occurred precisely during key Venus alignments. So, what happens when those alignments return? To the Maya, everything was cyclical, including destiny. And this idea is echoed not just in their timekeeping, but in their temples. Some structures are designed to capture solar light in exact moments, solstices, equinoxes, eclipses. During these events, shadows move across walls in serpentine shapes. Light becomes serpent, stone becomes prophecy. They weren't just tracking the sky, they were listening to it. And perhaps the reason their civilization seemed to vanish is because they saw something coming, something inevitable. A shift, a change in the rhythm, one that required silence, withdrawal, and maybe, just maybe, a message left behind for those who would one day be ready to understand. Because if you look closely, their story was never about the past. It was always about now. As the world begins to rediscover the scale of Maya knowledge, new questions emerge. Questions that reach far beyond Central America and into the heart of a global mystery. Because the Maya were not alone. Across the ocean, halfway around the world, ancient cultures were building massive stone structures aligned with the stars. The Great Pyramid of Giza, the temples of Angkor, Stonehenge, Teotihuacan, each in different eras, different continents, yet guided by the same celestial codes. In these places we find echoes of Maya principles, sacred geometry, astronomical alignment, reverence for Venus, solar cycles, and the idea that time is not a line but a loop. How is it that civilizations supposedly separated by oceans, with no means of contact, developed such similar understandings of the cosmos? Some believe this is evidence of a lost common origin, a source civilization whose teachings echoed across the world, reshaped by local cultures into their own languages and symbols. To others, it's something even more provocative, that knowledge itself is not invented but remembered, that ancient cultures, like the Maya, tapped into something we have since forgotten. This idea becomes harder to dismiss when we examine how the Maya used sound. In Chichen Itza, one of their most iconic sites, a single handclap in front of the main temple returns an echo that mimics the call of the sacred Quetzal bird, a symbol of divinity and rebirth. That sound effect is no accident. It's built into the very stones. Researchers now believe that many Maya temples were designed with acoustic properties in mind. Channels that carried voices across courtyards, chambers that amplified chants into deep, otherworldly tones. They understood that frequency could influence consciousness. Modern science is now catching up. Today we study how vibration affects water molecules, how sound can alter brainwaves, and how certain tones seem to heal or agitate. The Maya seemed to know this long ago and used it in ritual, in architecture, in timekeeping. To them, the universe wasn't silent. It was a symphony. Every planet, every star, every breath of wind was a note in a larger harmony. And they believed that those who understood this harmony could align themselves with something greater than kings or empires, with the flow of creation itself. But this knowledge came at a cost. When Spanish forces arrived in the 16th century, they didn't just destroy cities and enslave people. They burned books, thousands of them. Codices filled with mathematical systems, medicinal records, stories of the cosmos. One bishop proudly wrote that he had burned over 40 books of devilish lies. And just like that, an entire worldview, a system of knowledge built over millennia, was nearly erased. What survived was fragmented, ripped from context, reduced to mystery. And yet, the mystery still speaks. Through surviving glyphs, through the alignments of the ruins, through the oral stories still told in Maya villages today, stories of sky people, of forgotten technology, of cycles and return. Maybe they weren't trying to build monuments to their greatness. Maybe they were building messages. Messages for a future they knew would come, for a people they hoped would still be able to hear. And now, with satellites in orbit, with artificial intelligence decoding ancient languages, with climate shifts and cosmic alignments happening once again, that message may be waking up. The question is, will we listen? We often imagine the ancients as people who lived in darkness, in ignorance, in superstition, in a world without science. But what if the opposite is true? What if we are the ones who have forgotten? What if they, the Maya, lived closer to something we've lost? They saw no separation between the earth and the sky, the physical and the spiritual, the present and the eternal. Their buildings were not just structures, they were calendars, observatories, resonators of sacred sound. Their rituals were not empty tradition, they were synchronization with cosmic patterns. And maybe above all else, the Maya understood something we still resist, that humanity is not at the center of time. We are inside of it, we belong to it. Today, as global systems grow unstable, climate extremes, political unrest, technological dependence, it's hard not to feel a shift in the air. As if the rhythm is quickening, as if we are approaching something. And the Maya would have seen it. To them, history wasn't just recorded in stone, it was encoded in the stars. And the stars are in motion again. Modern scientists now confirm that solar activity is rising. Earth's magnetic field is weakening faster than expected. Natural disasters are becoming more extreme, more frequent. Social systems, once solid, now tremble with uncertainty. Is it coincidence, or is it the return of a cycle? The Maya believed that every era ended not with destruction, but with choice, a fork in the road, a moment when humanity must decide who it is and what it will become. And maybe that's where we stand now, at the edge of a forgotten wisdom, with ruins around us and stars above us. With the faint echo of stone whispering from beneath the jungle, listen. They never claimed to know everything, but they knew enough to leave behind questions and patterns and warnings, And if we truly pay attention to the alignments, the stories, the messages buried in architecture and time, we may realize that they weren't trying to impress the future. They were trying to prepare it. Not with prophecy but with perspective, because maybe the greatest secret the Maya left behind wasn't about death or war or lost gods. Maybe it was about remembrance, about seeing the universe not as something out there, but as something we are woven into. Maybe it was this, that the stars are not watching us, they are waiting for us. And when we finally remember how to read them, not with instruments but with insight, we may find that the Maya didn't disappear after all. They simply stepped back into the rhythm of the universe.